Lord. Thanks be to God. So keep awake during these next few moments. And isn't that interesting, too, that coming and going and being ready and all of that? Well, as we enter into this first Sunday in Advent, we officially begin, which you didn't know this, but we officially begin a sermon series, which is actually pretty lengthy. It's in little blocks, so it has to do with the elements of spirituality. I wanted to touchstone with our sense of spirituality and kind of reconnect. You know, I think that's an important thing to do, coming here and trying to get to know you all and where you want to go. We'll learn about ordinary elements such as earth, wind, and fire, not the band, but we're going to see how God uses these images to convey extraordinary meaning. So these ordinary things, earth, wind, fire, water, and what they mean beyond just that, just the surface. So throughout the season of Advent, I want to highlight the importance of the element of fire in our world and in our lives. So the next several weeks will be that, particularly when it comes to the prophets and they're leading us to Jesus, the Christ child, the light of the world, right? So do I have any music fans out there? Hello, right? Like, this is a musical church. What songs can you think of? Here's one, Bruce Springsteen, that has to relate to fire. Anybody know this? Whoa, I'm on fire, right? That's a song, right? And Jerry Lee Lewis, anybody know that one? Yeah, Great Balls of Fire, right. Okay, and I love playing this one at our bowling alley. It's by Johnny Cash. Yes, the Ring of Fire. See? Ring of Fire. All these songs, right? So these musicians, Springsteen, Jerry Lee Lewis, Johnny Cash, are like rock star moths drawn to a flame and crafting those kinds of hits on fire. Now let's talk about food. Restaurants. There's this song that I knew as a little girl, Have It Your Way, Have It Your Way. Anybody know that? What restaurant I'm talking about? Yes, right? They even have the little crown, which is always, it comes in handy. You get those for like Epiphany Sunday, right? So we can grab those and have those. But, you know, you can go right here in town to Burger King on Sandusky or to a Michelin-ranked restaurant by the name of Charlie Parker Steakhouse in New York City, where chefs prepare food over a gas stove or grill because the fire actually makes the food taste better, right? Everything in the universe seems to revolve around fire in some form. There's a poet who I absolutely love. He's since passed, but John O'Donohue writes this about fire in his book, The Four Elements. All the matter in the universe was born in violence. Think of that. Hydrogen and helium emerged from the intense heat of the Big Bang some 15 billion years ago, and the more complex atoms of carbon and oxygen and calcium and iron, out of which we are made, had their origins in the burning depths of the stars. That's an incredible image. Though infinitely distant from us, the same matter that burns in the stars burns and brightens in us. Fire is an intimate and powerful force, and it has the power to penetrate to the very essence of substance. Now, the authors of the Bible have spilled a great amount of ink in describing the significance of fire and its uses in physical form. Now, try and remember some of these things here. Fire is used for what? Maybe I'll just pop quiz you. What is it used for? To eat, cooking, yes. What else? Heat. Did someone say heat? Heat, yes. Warmth, to warm yourself, right, in a really cold day. Refining fire. Yeah, there's a great song on that too. Yes, like if you're working in metallurgy, right, it refines, it purifies. That's something else. What else? Smoke signals. Yes, when you go camping. Right? And you left your cell phone somewhere and you can't find it. You can, do smoke signals at a campground. What else? There's something else that happened a lot in the Old Testament that people were called to do with animal sacrifice. That's a huge hint. But burnt offerings. Well, burned at the stake. Yeah, that's 1,500 years later. We'll get there. But I like that answer. Hopefully that doesn't happen around here. But yeah, there's a lot of different things. It can represent purification, refinement, right? It can represent lust. There's that, the passion. I mean, we call the passion of Christ for a reason. It also can be an aspect of God's holiness, that sense of fire, right? And it can be a tool in punishing the wicked. As we encounter, though, Moses this morning, which is a peculiar reading to bring in, we recall that fire is a magnificent way to capture our attention, right? Think of shooting a flare gun if you're lost at sea, the smoke signals from a campfire, right? If you can't find your cell phone or your way back to the tent. And what about fireworks that light up the sky as we celebrate a national holiday? I'm not sure if you've ever asked God for a sign, but I know I have. And I don't know about you, but I prefer the kind that just seem to fall directly out of the sky and right into my lap. So every future decision is crystal clear. How many of you like those? I like those the best. Those are my favorite. On occasion, that actually has happened, but those moments are few and far between, very rare. And they tend to happen when we least expect it. I believe, though, that signs don't have to be the obnoxious club you over the head kind. Instead, they can be quiet, and they can be mysterious, and they can be mundane and ordinary. Now, let's think about Moses here for a minute. I wonder what happened that day the burning bush caught Moses' eye. I mean, he lived a calm, peaceful, normal, almost boring life as a shepherd and managed his father-in-law, Jethro's flocks, and until he came across that burning bush that particular day. Now, we often think that, wow, what a sign, a burning bush. A bush was on fire. Well, if you're out in the desert heat for too long, I have to be honest with you, you can see where things just might catch on fire. Now, think of our West Coast, right? The wildfires that start with a simple spark from out of nowhere. Perhaps burning bushes were a dime a dozen back then. I don't know. I wasn't there. But this fire was different. Something about it was different. The fire was blazing, but the bush was not consumed. Well, there's one to pay attention to, right? Now, it could have been a figment of his imagination, but then this unconsumed burning bush started talking. Now, there's another sign for you, right? Maybe that's the miracle in that story, but I wonder if the real sign didn't have anything to do with that bush. I wonder if the real miracle in the story is that Moses was actually paying attention. Wow. That being said, I wonder how many miracles we miss. How many miracles have we missed? How many burning bushes have we just hurried past because we were so consumed with our own busy schedules, our overpacked calendars to bother to notice? Or worse yet, and shame on us if this is true, we simply choose to turn a blind eye and ignore it altogether. Well, in this story from Exodus, God has some pretty big plans for Moses. Moses had lived in the house of Pharaoh as a privileged son adopted by Pharaoh's daughter, right? You remember when she found him in the basket covered in tar floating in the... Yes, and do you know what river? Yes, the Nile River. He grew up with pomp and circumstance of being a part of a royal family, and yet when he was older, he witnessed a Hebrew slave being beaten by an Egyptian, and he became red with anger, right? Fire, passion. And he killed the Egyptian soldier in retaliation. It was then that he fled to the wilderness and found his new life as a husband to Zipporah and a career as a shepherd. Talk about a job change. Many years later, they say something like 40, right? God uses this flame as a sign, something to get Moses his attention. And Moses is charged to deliver the Hebrew people out of slavery in Egypt. Now, this is real quick here, the second reading. I just want to point out, we hear Jesus telling his followers that the kingdom of God is near. Not only does he predict his own death in this gospel several times, we hear his foretelling of his coming again. Talk about fire and blazing signs. We hear the diminishment of fire. We hear that the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, and the stars will be falling from the heavens, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. Then he will send out the angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven. Now, after living through a pandemic, which was pretty heavy, right? This passage, we can kind of relate to it because that's what it felt like. But this passage may seem like it came from some apocalyptic movie from the 80s starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is meant to scare us to death rather than the Bible. But I want you to look at it differently. Really, it's a promise from Jesus that in God's time, suffering will end, and we will all get that happy ending that we want so badly and that we don't deserve, but we get anyway. Which, by the way, it's not really an ending, it's a beginning, because there's no ending at all. The triumph of hope, the coming of Jesus will be so cataclysmic. There will actually be a new heaven and a new earth in which God comes down to reside with us. So whatever these signs are, at times they can be overwhelming and uncertain, and at other times we can claim them as life-affirming and hopeful. God backs them with a divine warranty that will never expire. That's what I love about this Bible. With the coming of Advent and Christmas, there are signs all around us. With the lighting of each candle with fire, thank you, Stroop family, we proclaim the signs of peace and hope and joy and love. This fire is the same fire that caused Moses to turn toward God. This fire is the same fire that burned passionately within the hearts and voices of the prophets. And this fire that burns both fiercely and lovingly in the Christ child is the one who shows us the way in this light to come. All thanks and glory and honor and power be to God and Jesus the Christ, the light of the world.